For more on the situation in the Middle East, let's bring in Ghaith Al-omari, an expert in Arab and Israeli relations at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Ghaith, good to be with you again. As we heard from White House correspondent Owen Jensen, Secretary Blinken had a meeting in Qatar to discuss a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. What do you think the likelihood is of a truce?
I think it is quite minimal, to be honest. I mean, and that's for two reasons. One, there is a square that has to be circled, and it's really hard. On the one hand, Israel says the war will only end if Hamas is destroyed. On the other hand, Hamas says we'll only sign a hostage deal if there are guarantees there'll be a permanent ceasefire that guarantees their survival. So neither of them has much of an incentive. And I would add to that, at least in the case of Hamas, they feel that Israel is getting more isolated, that public opinion is turning on Hamas. And as we saw from a report that was published in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, the Hamas leader in Gaza believes that the more suffering that the Palestinians go through, the more that Israel is isolated. On the other hand, Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, has his own domestic politics, and now he's much more dependent on the very extreme components of his government. So the politics is just not right for it.
Yeah, Ghaith, and as you know, Hamas offered a counterproposal in ceasefire talks. However, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that some of the changes are unacceptable. Can you talk to us more about that and the big sticking points for both sides?
Right. I have to start with the caveat that I have not seen the report or the response, but from the reports that I have seen, basically Hamas has changed its mind about certain things that it accepted. It hardened its position. So right now, for example, it's demanding that there's going to be an end of the war, a permanent end of the war, by the end of phase one of the proposal. I mean, maybe take a step back. President Biden proposed 3 phases for this process. Hamas wants to say we want a permanent ceasefire by the end of that. That was not Hamas's position, a few weeks ago when it made its initial proposal. So they're walking back some of their positions. They're calling for a complete Israeli exit from Gaza. Again, these are new demands, or rather, these are changes of Hamas's previously accepted position. That's why Secretary Blinken, and I think someone in the White House, maybe it was National Security Advisor Sullivan, said that this is basically not showing negotiation in good faith.
Yeah, I quickly want to get to this. Benny Gantz, a senior member of Israel's war cabinet, he resigned over the weekend. What do you think this signals, and will his departure have a big impact in this war and a potential peace deal?
It signals that Israel is also a very divided society in terms of how to achieve the objectives. Part of the Israeli society believes that only military force will work, and Gantz is part of that camp, believes that diplomacy and negotiation and a deal with Hamas is necessary. In the short term, Gantz's departure, and Gantz was one of the more centrist members of the Israeli war cabinet. In the short term, it will give more power to some of the more extreme voices, like finance minister and the national security minister. But in the longer term, I think it will deepen the need in Israel to reach an election. That's a divided society. The government does not represent the whole society. And I think there's a growing momentum towards an election sometime sooner there.
And before I let you go quickly, today the terror group Hezbollah launched hundreds of rockets into northern Israel. This after an Israeli airstrike that killed the Hezbollah commander. How does this conflict, Ghaith, play into the situation in Gaza or complicate it? And also going back to that potential peace deal?
Look, I mean, we've seen an escalation. The attacks between Hezbollah and Israel are increasing in terms of intensity, in terms of scope, etc. And it's one of these ironic situations where neither side actually wants a war, because both sides stand to lose a lot in a war, yet neither side is willing to step down. And there's a big concern that a miscalculation, a mistake could actually lead to an all-out war that would be much more devastating than the war in Gaza, or at least equally devastating. Now, Hezbollah says that they will stop attacks in Israel if there is a truce in Gaza. And there's a linkage between the two. And I think that's why the president, and I believe the secretary as well, said that having a truce in Gaza is key to basically de-escalation in the whole region, including the Lebanese front.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Ghaith, always good to be with you. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.